A genie's guide to getting everything you want in life without trying. A genie appears in front of you and grants you 3 wishes. Hooray, you say, and promptly request $1 billion in a Swiss bank account, world peace for which you're granted a Nobel Prize, and your soulmate waiting for you at your new beach house. Nothing happens. Ahem, you say, I believe I wished for $1 billion, a Nobel, and a soulmate. So sorry, she says, I'm not that kind of genie. I can't just grant any old thing for you to name and claim. I can only respond to your intention. Oh, you say back. Well, in that case, I intend to have fabulous wealth, an immensely fulfilling occupation, and an unreasonably happy marriage to the person of my dreams. Excellent, says the genie. Your wish is my command. Before you appears a new laptop. The radio starts playing the Rolling Stones. And you scratch your head as you hear a knock at the door. The end of all our exploring will be to return to where we started and know the place for the first time. T.S. Eliot. I met this genie once myself. After graduating college, I was determined to found a company and make a fortune as fast as humanly possible. My moment arrived a few short years later. Upon reading about all the software developers in India solving the Y2K problem, I graduated way back in the year 2000. It occurred to me that those same brilliant Indian knowledge workers could also do research, analysis, and all sorts of things besides coding. I had the flash-forward vision that I could create a multi-billion-dollar back office to the world. It was a big idea, and I was a young, well-educated, hard-working, would-be entrepreneur with nothing to stop me. I failed. It turned out I was not a good operator, but that wasn't even my biggest problem. My intentions were all wrong, and my subsequent mistakes were legion. After lining up pre-seed funding, I declined it so that I could own 100% of a company that I thought would surely be worth billions someday. That left me with no capital to hire, so I stayed up until 4 in the morning doing much of the work myself. I labored incessantly and, after 2 years, had grown my company to a half-dozen employees and 6-figure revenues, all of which amounted to an entrepreneurial yawn. Meanwhile, 2 other companies that started with the same idea around the same time did the opposite and ended up exiting for 9 figures. Their founders loved what they did, avoided hugging the equity, invested ahead of their growth curve, and eschewed the perfect for the good. They had the right intentions and the right process, and they trusted that it would naturally lead to favorable outcomes. I had it exactly backwards. When you go all in on the process, the result comes as a natural byproduct. Jay Shetty in Ryan Holiday's book on Stoicism, The Obstacle is the Way, he told a story about George Clooney. For years, Clooney was apparently rejected by casting director after casting director. He felt incredulous, slighted, and depressed. He couldn't figure out what he was doing wrong. He memorized all the lines perfectly, spent weeks getting into character, and studiously researched each show's background and creators. Yet he kept getting blanked. One day, as it seemed that the universe was conspiring against him, he had a realization. You're asking the casting director to solve your problem, George. But she doesn't care about your problem. She has her own problems. Figure out how to solve her problems, and in turn she'll solve your own. It was an epiphany. Clooney now understood that the casting directors weren't there to deny him a future in show business. They wanted to find the right actor for the role. They wanted to stop spending hours watching actors audition. They wanted to hire him. He needed to solve their problem by putting their needs before his own. In other words, he needed the right intention. Jay Shetty, host of the immensely popular podcast, On Purpose, put it like this: when you go all in on the process, the result comes as a natural byproduct. If you're constantly chasing something to be somewhere, it becomes much harder. Act without attachment to the fruit of your action. Bhagavad Gita. A couple decades on, as I've matured, I've worked hard to sideline my ego, put others first, background the future, and foreground the present. I've tried to take inspiration from the ancient wisdom of the Taoist concept of wu-wei, or effortless action, and the Bhagavad Gita, which says something like act without attachment to the fruit of your action. The less I've tried to force things, the more things seem to naturally come together. Each day, each hour, each minute, I've just done whatever sat in front of me to the best of my abilities and with pure intention. Several years after rebooting my career, a new opportunity found me. This time, it was the chance to start a venture capital fund focused on Israeli startups. I knew very little about the country, but I approached it with openness and curiosity. Soon I became president of an investment firm that I helped grow from humble beginnings to more than $1 billion in assets over the course of a decade. Ironically, achieving that billion-dollar milestone gave me almost no satisfaction. On the other hand, by that time, I had met an amazing woman who introduced me to her magical world of visual art. We had 2 young kids who ran joyous circles around our living room, and I had finally stumbled upon a personal philosophy and spirituality that worked for me. I suddenly realized that I wanted nothing more than what I already had. By the time your 3 wishes come true, you'll be a different person and they'll be different wishes. Properly wielded, the laptop is a magic lamp of its own. It can get you practically everything you want. The key is not to focus on what you want. Instead, focus on what you're doing right now. Nothing more. If you do that with pure intention and you cultivate a sense of curiosity and openness to what follows, it will all naturally lead to the next thing. And that thing will lead to the next. By the time your 3 wishes come true, you'll be a different person and they'll be different wishes. As T.S. Eliot wrote, the end of all our exploring will be to return to where we start.